Okay, well, hi, everybody. It's exactly 6. And I say, let's get started because there's no reason for us to wait around for the late people. Every minute of review is valuable. So what I want to ask you is, I like to give preference to people's questions. So if anybody has brought any questions that you might have, why don't you tell me what your questions are, and we'll concentrate on those first. I think I need some water. If nobody has any questions, I have plenty of material to go through, always do.
Hi, Kristen. I don't have question, but it's nice to see you.
Oh, thank you.
Because just I listen to your recording and your voice.
Well, it's funny because people say, Kristen, you're exactly the same in real life as you are on the recording. And I'm like, well, what else would I be? Oh, no. All right. Well, thank you. I love to meet the students in person.
I just sitting messy, so I just not turn on my video because it's messy.
You are. Uh-huh. And well, I've got my little dog with me and everything. She's asleep. All right, so let's see if we can get down. I have plenty of material for you to do. Now, a lot of times students say to me, what are the most important chapters to cover? And I always say that for the tests, probably the two most important topics are agency and fair housing. Now, fair housing, because we spend, 5 hours on it? Agency, we spend 10 or 11 hours on it. It's a monster. So those are the two most important subjects, agency and fair housing. And the reason why is that agency and fair housing violations are the main reasons that brokers and salespersons get their licenses taken away in New York State. So Department of State kind of figures that while they have us here as a captive audience, they're going to make darn sure that we understand those two most important topics. Now, those of you who have not been with me before, I just want to remind you that what I do is I give you questions and I give you thoughts to consider and information in the chat. And at the end of the chat, you can save it yourself or we can send it to you, however you want to do it. All right. So I'm going to ask you a question regarding licensing that is on the test. Now, a lot of people say that they take the test and they know the answer, but sometimes the way the questions are worded is a little bit strange. So this is an example of that. This question is worded a little bit strange. So if a salesperson or broker's license is revoked by Department of State, they are ineligible to be relicensed. That should say to be relicensed, not to re-relicensed. They are ineligible to be relicensed until the expiration of what period of time? So in other words, if Department of State takes your license away, you can always apply to get it back. But how long do you have to wait to apply to get it back? Anybody know? I'll give you choices. Thank you. I don't even have to give you choices. Jennifer has got it. The answer is 1 year. Now, some people get tricked by that. And the reason why is that some things that we have to remember are 2 years. Like you need 2 years experience to go from being a salesperson to being a broker. And you have to take your continuing ed every 2 years, but this one's only 1 year. All right, so you reapply every year. But the first time I saw this question, I go, wait a second, ineligible to be relicensed until? Like that's some pretty awkward language. So one of the things that I would suggest to you when you're taking the test is that when you see questions that are worded really strangely like this, just slow down and take your time and read it really carefully. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have some questions that you can answer in a nanosecond. Like if I said to you, how old do you have to be to get a salesperson license? How old?
It's 20.
Well, no, I didn't say broker. I said salesperson. Yes, exactly right. 18. Okay. So some questions. And now that we've established that, when you see that question on the test, you're going to get the answer in a nanosecond. So some questions can be answered very quickly. Like, how old does a person have to be to get a sales license? And the answer is 18. So you can rattle that off real fast. Another one that you're going to see that you can rattle off real fast is, how long should a broker keep their residential business records? How long should a broker keep their residential business records? Anybody know? Want me to give you choices? Oh, all right. Vanessa's got it before I even give choices. So yes, absolutely, 3 years. Okay. Now, this, of course, it begs the question. Everybody says, well, how long do you keep commercial records? It doesn't say in the statute. The reason it doesn't say in the law is because almost all of our laws in real estate are for consumer protection. So there's tons and tons of rules and regulations for residential, but there's a lot fewer rules and regulations for commercial. So they have a minimum period that you have to keep your records when you're dealing with ordinary people in residential. But when you're dealing with professional business people in commercial, they don't really need those kind of protections. So there's no time period spelled out in the law. All right. Oh, do you know the one? Does everybody know the one about who needs a license and who doesn't need a license? They love this on the test. Do you know what I'm even talking about? Okay, I'll tell you. There are some people who are allowed in New York state law to do real estate services, but they don't need a real estate license. Now, the most obvious example of this is that, what if I wanted to sell my own home? I can sell my own home. I don't need a real estate license. Okay, so I could be offering my home for sale. Offering real estate for sale is a licensed activity. But if I'm doing it for myself, I don't need a license. So there are people who can do real estate services and they don't need a license. Now, there are 6 categories of people who can do real estate services and they don't need a license. And I hate to do it to you, but it is always on the test. So let me see if I can recite what those are. Oh, before we go ahead, Vanessa has a question. Yes, Vanessa.
Hi, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, so I'm on chapter 3, so I passed that part, but I do have a question because I know that there was a question that I answered wrong in one of the quizzes, and I don't understand the difference between why a property manager can don't need a license to do like this kind of real estate business if it is only for one property. but a landlord cannot give a gift certificate for referrals.
Oh, okay. Well, first and foremost, I actually know this because I called the attorney for National Association of Realtors. And I asked him the question. I go, come on, like if a landlord has he has tenants in his building and he promises them that he'll give them a Macy's gift certificate if they find other tenants for him, can he do that? And the lawyer goes, no, legally he can't do it because it's a referral fee and they're not licensed. But then the attorney said something kind of funny. And he goes, Kristen, do you speed on the highway? And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, well, if the speed limit is 65, do you ever go 66 or 67? And I go, yeah, of course, everybody does. He goes, that's the point. Everybody does. So if the landlord gives somebody a $300 gift certificate to Macy's, I don't think the investigators at Department of State are going to get out of bed for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So
but a test
it's
is
not that
always,
huh?
but on the test is always like, the answer is now it's illegal. But yeah, I just
Right.
couldn't understand much of the difference between the property manager. Is it because the property manager works under a brokerage or something? Like, or
Yeah, well, let's go into the second
agency?
part. No, the property manager doesn't have to work under a brokerage if they're only working for one landlord. See, with the idea that the landlord could give gift certificates to the people in the building, they could be licensed, they could be not licensed, they could be working for lots of different landlords. I mean, there's no way to control it. But with a manager who works for only one owner, they have only one job. So it's kind of obvious that they are only doing sales and rentals for that one particular landlord.
Okay, thank you.
I think the example that I gave in the class was, let's say that you want to rent an apartment. Okay, so you go to the apartment building and they don't have like a broker, they don't have an on-site agent. All they have is just a super who's there. And the super takes you upstairs and unlocks the door, shows you the apartment. He goes, do you like it? You go, yeah, I like it, I like it. He goes, here's a lease. Okay, you sign the lease contract. He just rented you an apartment. Does that super guy, does he have a real estate license?
No,
Yeah, probably
it's
not.
not.
Probably not. He's just an employee of the landlord. But because he is renting apartments for only one landlord, he doesn't need a real estate license.
Okay.
Does that make better sense now?
Mhm.
Okay, so what I'm going to
Thank you.
do is I'm going to talk about the list of people who need licenses and people who don't need licenses. And I'm going to cut and paste. So it's going to take me a second. Now, the first group who can do real estate services all day long without a license is attorneys. And here we go. Okay, so attorneys are automatically real estate brokers. And the only time an attorney needs a real estate license is if they decide to open up a brokerage and hire salespersons. And even then, they don't have to take a course or a test or anything. All they have to do is send $185 to Albany, and Albany gives them a broker license number. Okay, that's always on the test. All right, the next one is what we were just talking about. Building workers like supers, on-site managers, maintenance workers who work for only one owner do not need a real estate license. They can sell and rent apartments all day. They can collect rents or deposits or handle money, and they don't need a real estate license. All right. Now, the third one is pretty easy. People assigned by a court, because courts assign people all the time to handle real estate matters. Like if somebody dies, they handle, the court appoints an executor or an administrator to handle, there might be real estate that the person owned. And then when they passed away, the real estate has to be distributed. So the court will appoint an executor or an administrator to do that. Courts also appoint people to handle real estate in bankruptcies, foreclosures, things like that. So anybody assigned by a court doesn't need a license. And then, can these people get a commission? Sure. I'll give you an example, okay? My sister is a lawyer. My sister is not a real estate broker, like she doesn't hire salespersons or anything. And one time my father wanted to sell his house. So he asked my sister if she would sell his house for him, and she did. She's not a real estate broker, but can my father pay her a commission?
Yes, because she's attorney.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And with regard to the property managers and building workers, I actually wrote Department of State. I wrote them a letter in 2017. And I said to Department of State, if a person is a super or a property manager, does it matter whether they are paid a salary or whether they're paid commission or both? And the lawyer from Department of State wrote me back and said, the mode of payment doesn't matter. What matters is whether they're working for one owner or not. So makes it easy for us, right? Once again, people assigned by a court. Usually, I don't think executors are usually paid, but I think that other people like administrators and receivers and stuff like that who are appointed by the court are indeed paid. So yeah, they can be paid. And then, all right, the next one. The next one is kind of freaking obvious, which is that people can sell or rent their own real estate without a license. We all know that. Public officers. Public officers could be people who are government officials. And probably the most prominent government official that I can think of is New York City Marshal. Because if a landlord evicts somebody and the tenant doesn't leave, the landlord is not allowed to go in there and just start grabbing the person's stuff, and kicking them out. They have to have the city marshal do it. The city marshal handles evictions, and the city marshal is a government official. So I think evicting somebody from their home, relocating them, is definitely a real estate service, but they can do it without a license. Oh, a whole bunch of new people arrived. So the people who have just arrived, let me tell you what it is we're doing. On both the school test and the state test, I guarantee you will see lots of questions about who is required to have a real estate license and who is not. And we're going through the categories of people who do not need a real estate license to do real estate services. Now, if you just showed up, you don't have to worry, because you will get a copy of the transcript of this chat at the end. So you'll get a written copy of what we've discussed anyway. But in the meantime, just to recap, I'm going to tell you the list of people who can do real estate services and they don't need a real estate license. The first is attorneys. As long as an attorney doesn't hire salespersons, they don't need a license. Number two, property managers or building workers who work for only one landlord. If they work for more than one owner, then they need a license. Number three, people assigned by a court. And courts assign people to handle real estate in probate, in foreclosures, in bankruptcies. So anybody assigned by a court to handle real estate doesn't need a license. Government officials, anybody who is assigned by the government to do real estate services, like the city marshal or somebody, doesn't need a real estate license. And the last one, number 6, is tenant associations like co-op boards and condo associations. So 6 is tenant associations like co-op boards or condo associations. They don't need a license. So
Hi,
now you
Kristen.
have,
Oh, hi, I have a question. Do these people that don't require licenses, do they have to take any like, what is it? Not continued education, but like the fair housing and the agency courses every 2 years?
to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you.
The new rule about the new rule about having to take implicit bias and cultural competence, that was promulgated by New York State Legislature, which of course is the Senate and the Assembly, and that was aimed specifically at us, real estate salespersons and brokers. So they didn't, in the letter of the law, it doesn't say like receivers or administrators or property managers or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so just to review, I want to ask you, when does a property manager need a real estate license?
If we work for more than one landlord,
Correctamundo. And the answer is when they work for more than one building owner. Okay, and then when does a lawyer need a license?
when he hires salesperson,
Exactly. All right, somebody's been listening to me. This is great.
but we confused here. You said that one building owner. If a owner has 2 buildings and more than one building, so.
Okay, that is not on the test. And the reason it's not on the test is that I have heard all different interpretations of the law. I have heard people say, it doesn't matter how many buildings, it matters how many owners. I've heard people say, it's got to be one owner and one building. Okay, I've heard both. And I can't find anywhere in the letter of the law that it says one building. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not touching that. But we don't have to worry. You know why we don't have to worry? Because it's not on the test. On the test, they ask you about one owner. They don't ask you about how many buildings.
Got it.
Now, I worked for an owner once that owned a whole bunch of buildings. And the owner said, I want to hold your real estate license. And I said, well, I don't want you to hold my real estate license. I want to hold my own broker license. And he goes, no, no, no. Even though the law doesn't require it, just to be on the safe side, I want your real estate license. I said, okay. So I got 2 licenses. I had one license as an associate broker with that owner. And I had another license as an independent broker with myself. So most people, just to be on the safe side, if they own more than one building, they'll say, we want you to have a license. Okay, so attorney does not need a real estate license unless, and we already have the answer. The answer is unless they hire salespersons. If attorney hires salespersons, they need license. Okay, so let me see if I can find a good question for you.
Kristen, I have a,
real estate. Yeah, go ahead.
and I just want to make sure I'm not flying off of the topic. Are we on a topic right now? I just joined. Sorry.
I know you just joined, Katrina. You might not have heard me because you might have been joining as I said it. I said, don't worry. You, like some people are like slightly late, but you didn't really miss anything because you know
Okay.
that the class, I'm going to send you the transcript.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have to worry.
So I just wanted to get some clarification on what is the difference between a pre-qualification and a commitment letter? Like pre-qualification is the act of qualifying.
Okay, I'll tell you. Let's just answer this one question and then
Okay.
we'll go ahead and talk about pre-qualification. Now,
Okay.
which of these people is exempt from the requirement to have a real estate license? A tenant relocator, an attorney who does not sponsor salespersons, a property manager for several different owners, or a mortgage broker for mortgages other than residential. This is on the test. Absolutely right. Okay, the answer is indeed B. Okay, now a tenant relocator needs a license because they're just like you and me. What makes a tenant relocator unique is that they're helping people from other cities find a home in New York, whereas we might be helping New Yorkers find a home in New York, like they already live here. But a tenant relocator helps people from other places. But they're still a salesperson or a broker just like you and me. B is the attorney. If the attorney sponsors salespersons, they need a license. If they don't sponsor salesperson, no license. They're like my sister. 3C, a property manager. If it's a property manager for one owner, no license. If it's for several different owners, they need a license. And D is the one that got me. Okay, so D is not the right answer, but let's look at it. Now, mortgages other than residential? What does that mean?
They are talking about commercial mortgages.
Thank you. It's not like they could just say commercial, right?
Yes.
So yes, that really means commercial mortgages. Now, I just want to tell you something about that a lot of people don't really know, okay? It is illegal to arrange mortgages for someone else for money if a person is not licensed. If it is legal for a real estate salesperson or broker to arrange commercial mortgages for someone else for money. But we, and that would be salespersons and brokers, right, cannot legally do residential mortgages. Why? Can you guess why?
Yeah.
Consumer protection. They don't care if we do commercial mortgages because the people in commercial are professionals and they are kind of taking their own risks in the industry. But New York State wants a lot of consumer protection. So they want to be sure that people who are ordinary people who are just like buying or renting, well, not renting, you wouldn't get a mortgage to rent, but who are buying a residential home, they want to be certain that they have consumer protection. So they don't want us doing residential mortgages. They only want licensed mortgage professionals. So what I have written here for you is, it's illegal to arrange mortgages for someone else for money if a person is not licensed. It is legal for a real estate salesperson or broker to arrange commercial mortgages for someone else for money. But we, salespersons and brokers, cannot legally do residential mortgages. It is perfectly legal for a person licensed as a mortgage professional to do any kind of mortgage, commercial or residential. All right, now I thought that Katrina had an excellent question about pre-qualification and pre-approval. Okay, so let's talk about it. Now, this actually happened to me. What happened was I was looking for a home, and I thought, well, gee, like I know how much my income is, but I have no idea how much my monthly payments would be if I got a mortgage, or how much my insurance would be. I don't know how much I can afford per month, and I don't know how much the bank will lend me or anything like that. So I would have to be crazy to go around shopping for a home when I don't know any of this stuff. I would be wasting my time looking at properties I can't afford. So I called up the bank, and the bank guy, he was all friendly and everything. And he goes, how much money do you make? And I told him, I said, oh, I make a lot of money. I make scadsoulies of money. So I told him, you know, pretty much about myself. And he goes, oh, that's great. I can give you a mortgage for, you know, X amount of money. And I was so surprised, because I go like, wait a second, like he didn't spend any time like verifying that anything I said was true. Like I could have told him that I was Richard Branson or somebody, you know, and he would have believed me. So pre-qualification is when they do it over the phone and they don't verify anything. So let me give that definition to you. So before looking at homes, buyers usually contact the bank to see how much they will be allowed to borrow. There are a few kinds of mortgage qualification by a bank. So the first one is pre-qualification. It is over the phone and is a rough estimate, and they don't verify the truth of any info that the buyer tells them. Okay. Now the second one is pre-approval. Pre-approval, it is in writing. And the bank asks to examine documents like bank statements, tax returns, W-2s, stuff like that. Then the bank writes a letter to the potential borrower saying an estimate of how much they will lend and what monthly fees will be. Now, the third one is the mortgage commitment letter. And the mortgage commitment letter, that's when the buyer applies to the bank for an actual mortgage. And the bank writes them a letter saying, yeah, we're planning to lend you, writes a letter saying, we are planning to lend you this much. But it is always qualified or always with a lot of conditions. Like the bank is going to say, we'll lend you this much if the property appraises for this much, and we'll lend you this much within a certain time period, or we'll lend you this much if certain conditions don't change, like you don't lose your job or something, you know? So, but it's always with a lot of conditions. Now, I always thought that a mortgage commitment letter was like a commitment and that, you know, once the bank did it, they couldn't back out. But to tell you the truth, there are they always have quite a few conditions in their mortgage commitment. So the bank does, you know, have mechanisms that allow them to back out if they have to. So it's not like signing a mortgage contract. Okay, does that clarify it, Katrina?
It does. I have one follow-up question. What would you suggest that we require from like a buyer before we like, you know, really engage them and start stepping outside to go see homes? A commitment or like a what was the second one? Pre-approval?
Pre-approval, okay. One of the things that people have the most trouble with in real estate sales is determining whether the buyer is serious or not. And to some extent, it's true in rentals. Like I was talking to one of my students the other day, and he goes, I will never show a property. If more than one person is going to live there, I will never show a property unless they're all there. And he goes, for example, if I'm renting to like 3 roommates, all 3 roommates have to be there. If I'm renting to a husband and wife, both husband and wife have to be there. And he said the reason why is that if only one person is agreeing, it's way too easy for like everything to fall through, you know? So it's kind of the same here. Like you never really know when people are serious. Like one of them might be serious and the other 2 roommates aren't serious, or the wife might be serious and the husband isn't. So like you want to know that the people you're working with in sales or rentals are serious. Now, if a person is running around willy-nilly looking at properties without having any idea whatsoever in the world how much they can afford, that doesn't sound too serious to me, right? So if someone has at least taken the step of calling the bank to find out what they can afford, then, you know, which would be pre-qualification, then that's a good indication that they're probably serious. Now, if it's a high-end home, then a lot of times people won't show it without pre-approval. Because pre-qualification, as I said, any joker can get it. You just call the bank and go, like, I make a billion, skajillion, billions, you know, scadzulies, you know, and, you know, you can tell them anything about how much money you make. So a lot, especially for high-end properties, they really want to see pre-approval.
So, and when you say they want to see pre-approval, you mean the seller or like the seller's agent might request that you send them the letter?
I'll give you an example that I gave in the course. All right. Has anybody ever heard of Picasso's daughter, Paloma Picasso? She's kind of old now. I think she's still alive, but she's like in her 80s though, but she's pretty old. But anyway, Paloma Picasso was very well known in her own right in the fashion world. But anyway, Paloma Picasso was selling her home and my company had the exclusive on it. And people were dying to see her apartment because they knew it was going to be full of art treasures, and it was. And we wouldn't let anybody in. We would not make an appointment for anybody to see the place. We didn't hold open houses. Nobody could see the place unless they could show us a pre-approval letter for at least $10 million. Like you really have to do that to protect your high-end clients. That makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 Now, mortgage commitment is too far down the line. Like that's when the person has found the property that they want and they've applied for a mortgage. Like they've said, you know, huh?
But how we clear in the open house if there's any open house and many people come and they sign there and they put their offer? So because we need to maybe choose one of them.
Okay, well, at open houses, they usually don't have a rule about pre-qualification and pre-approval because it's open and like pretty much anybody can come.
Yeah, and they can just mention their phone number and offer there, right? They can leave that.
Yeah, I mean, what you do just, you know, for good business practice and also for security is you have a sign-in sheet. And everybody who comes into the open house has to sign their name and answer a few questions. You know, like they have to say whether they're a broker, whether they're a buyer, whether they are working with a broker, what their time frame is, what their budget is, you know, whatever. Things like that you can ask on your sign-in sheet.
And but we can't ask at that time about their taxes, W-2, that type of stuff, no?
At an open house?
Yeah, which Katrina is asking, right? We cannot do
Well,
that.
we're not really the ones who would be asking. It's really the bank who's going to ask for that. Like we don't ask them for their tax returns and their W-2s and stuff. The bank asks them when they want to get a mortgage.
But her question is, if
Like, you know what?
We need to just clarify which is serious, because we are just discuss here which person is clear or which person is serious to buy, and we just spend time to show houses, and which is not. Like you said that for if anybody is qualified for 10 million, pre-qualified, only you show the house, Paulina house, to them only, not everybody, and no open house.
You know what? I think she may have gotten confused. What I was talking about was showing buyers. If you're an agent for like a buyer, so you want to get the buyer's pre-qualification letter to know what they can afford when you go out to see.
Well, first of all, pre-qualification isn't the letter. Pre-approval is the letter.
Okay, pre-approval.
Yeah.
So, and I think she may have gotten confused with your example because you're saying that you would request a pre-approval letter from the buyer.
Yeah, because that was
the buyer's agent.
Exclusive. I mean, for starters, the property was selling for over $10 million, right? So that would make it super exclusive. But also on top of that, it was loaded with art treasures, and you can't just let anybody walk through. So that was sort of an extreme example that I was using to give you an idea of how important it is when you have a high-end client like that to protect them from people who are trying to get inside their home and they're not serious. But
Right.
generally speaking, for just an ordinary home, okay? Somebody calls me on the phone. Hi, Kristen, I'm shopping for houses and I saw your ad, and can you please show this co-op or condo to me on Saturday? And I say, well, great, I'd love to ask you a little bit more about yourself. First and foremost, I assume you've spoken to the bank and, gotten some ideas about your pre-qualification and your price range. And they go, no, I don't know what pre-qualification is. Then you tell them what it is and you advise them to talk to the bank. You might even have a friend at a bank and you can say, well, I've worked with these different loan officers at these different banks. Why don't you give them a call? And in a case like that, if it's not a high-end property where the seller's agent is not requiring pre-qualification or pre-approval, you might take a chance based on how you feel about the person. If you're getting vibes that they're serious, they just don't know how to proceed, you know, then you might want to take a chance and show it to them. And you, of course, advise them to get pre-qualification or pre-approval before they go to see the property.
And we can always ask one question, right? Like, it's your first house or it's your second house? No?
Yeah, yeah. Sure, you can ask people stuff. All right,
Thank you.
so, you know, those kind of tricks of the trade, these are things that when you go to work for a brokerage, that your broker will train you. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, oh, your broker will train you in all this stuff. And this is not the kind of thing that we have to worry about for the test.
But that's okay, sorry. Yeah, it's waste of time right now, it means.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and give you more type of test questions that you're likely to see. All right, here's one. If a client signs exclusive right to sell contract with a broker, but client sells home without any help from the broker, what happens to broker's commission?
He got the commission.
Okay, here we go.
Yes.
All right, now I'm going to give you choices. Okay, the broker's not entitled to any commission. The broker is required to renegotiate the commission. The broker is entitled to the originally agreed upon commission, or they're entitled to half of it. Yep, Sherry's got it right. The answer is C. They are entitled, right? Everybody's got it right. Beautiful. Yes, so the broker is entitled to the full commission as agreed in the listing contract. Now, does anybody know why? I just can't spell that word, can I? Anybody know why?
Oh,
Okay, I'm going to tell you why.
Because,
I'm sorry?
I was gonna say because the agent still worked to help the broker promote the property. I mean, not the broker, but the client.
Yeah, but then the client says, well, you may have worked, but you didn't succeed. Why should I pay you? You didn't do anything. So here's the reasoning, okay? Okay, let's pretend I'm selling my home, okay? If I give you the listing, are you going to advertise my home?
yes,
Yeah. You going to hold open houses?
yes,
Yeah. You going to take photos?
everything.
Yeah, right? Everything. You're going to work on marketing my property. The problem is that people are sneaky. And if you are going to hold an open house, you have to say in advance where it is. So if you're going to hold an open house on Sunday, what sneaky people do is on Saturday, they go to the building and they say to the door staff, oh, hi, I heard that apartment 12C was for sale. Could you call and see if the owner would be willing to speak to a potential buyer? And the door staff calls upstairs and the seller, who's me, says, yeah, a buyer, send them up. And we do a deal behind your back and the buyer cuts you out of a commission. But they wouldn't have even known about it if they hadn't seen your advertising and your photos in your open house. So you did do the work, you did succeed. See, that's why. And so you say to me, if I'm the seller, you say, look, Kristen, I can't afford to market your real estate if you're going to cut me out of a commission. Like, people are going to go behind my back and go straight to you. You got to protect me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Only one person like kind of thinks it makes sense. Okay, a couple people think it makes sense. Okay. All right, that one's always on the test. All right. Let's see what else we got. Oh, all right. Here's another one that you are always going to see. When does a salesperson have to give agency disclosure form? And your choices are when does a salesperson have to give agency disclosure form? At first substantive contact, before the transaction is finalized, before the seller makes the counter offer, or after the buyer has decided to buy. Right, everybody got it right. Beautiful, beautiful, everybody got it right. Now, one of the things that they try to trick you about on the test is that to them, Department of State, they are a little bit old-fashioned. And what I mean by old-fashioned is that, like, a lot of these rules were written decades ago. A lot of these laws and rules were written decades ago, and they don't really change. And Department of State doesn't really change the test very much. So I'm going to give you an example of a question you're going to see on the test, and you're going to think that, okay, Eric, I'll get to, this is a great one. I like this one. I'll get to this one as soon as we finish with the first substantive contact, okay? So I'm going to give you a question that you're very likely to see on either the school test or the state test or both, okay? Which of these is most likely first substantive contact? Okay, and I'm going to give you choices. Okay, so which of these is most likely first substantive contact? The broker gives a speech on home, I meant on home buying, sorry, a speech on home buying, sorry about that. So a broker gives a speech on home buying, a person calls the office about a broker ad, people come to an open house but don't ask about the real estate, or a person walks into the broker office and asks to see a specific property. Now, the right answer is D, but I am totally with the person who said B. All right, let me tell you why. Okay, so the answer is D. Let me type that for you so that everybody knows. All right, so the answer is D. They are describing a face-to-face meeting between an agent and a person interested in a property. Okay, so the answer is D. But what is my problem with this, and I think it's your problem also, is, well, what about the people who call on the phone and they're asking questions about a property? Isn't that substantive? Yes, it is substantive. when they wrote the test like 40 years ago, they didn't really think about electronics. Because 40 years ago, we didn't have instant messaging and FaceTime and Skype and DMs and emails. And like, we just didn't have all that texting on the phone. We just didn't have all that stuff. So they weren't thinking about electronics. So Department of State still thinks of first substantive contact as being face-to-face with the person shaking hands. Now, legally, the first substantive contact can be electronic. So legally, the first substantive contact can be electronic. But on the test, they still think of it as being face to face in person. Okay, so I hope that I bailed a couple of people out, because when I looked at this, I wanted to say, well, B, because you're having a substantive conversation on the phone. But the old-fashioned way is to think of it as being still like in person. All right, now, is it okay with everybody if we move on? Everybody
Yes.
got it? Good, good, good. Because I love this fellow's question, and I'm going to repost it. I'm going to repost what Eric wrote because I want everybody to see it again. Okay, so he says, what's the difference between pro forma, discounted cash flow analysis, and operating statement? Fantastic question. I love it. Now, let's take the, yes, I would be happy to talk to you at the end of class. We can talk like via Zoom, or we can talk on the phone, whichever you prefer, okay? All right. Just remind me at the end of class, if you don't mind, because at the end of the class, I will be doing a lot of administrative stuff. So if you can remind me at the end of class, I'd appreciate that. Oh, how do you like that? Somebody's calling. Is that you? Is that you calling me now? All right.
No, it's not. I'm sorry. That
I
wasn't
was
me.
joking. I was joking. People don't think I'm funny. All right. Now, okay, so the three documents we want to talk about are the pro forma, the discounted cash flow analysis, and the operating statement. Okay, so let's take the operating statement first. All right, so operating statement is it's a table showing income and expenses. The bottom line of a building, obviously, income and expenses of a building. The bottom line, the most important number to know is net operating income. Now, the reason that's important is, think about it this way. If I said to you, do you want to buy a home? Okay, you would want to know, like, is it beautiful? Is it in a nice neighborhood? Like, does it have a good school system for my kids? You know, is it stylish? You know, stuff like that you'd want to know, right? If I said to you, do you want to buy a commercial building? You don't care what it looks like. You don't care if it's stylish. You don't care what the neighborhood's like. You know what you care? You care, if I buy it, how much money will I make? So commercial buyers primarily care, if I buy this building, how much money will I make per year? Operating statement answers that question by telling what NOI or net operating income is for this year. Okay, and it also tells what the income and expenses are. It tells like how much money they're getting in rent from their tenants, and it tells how much they're paying for their payroll and how much they're paying for security and advertising and computers and like all that kind of stuff, maintenance and repairs, you know. So it really gives a picture of how the building is operating. So you always, if you are a commercial sales broker, you always give a potential buyer the operating statement. Okay. Now, pro forma is similar to an operating statement in that it shows income and expenses of the building, though in less detail. The difference between operating statement and pro forma is that the statement tells real numbers that are happening now. The pro forma predicts income and expenses of the building for next 5 to 10 years. And the reason why is because think about it this way. If I'm a buyer and I'm going to buy a building for 40 million bucks or something, I don't just want to know what the building is doing this year. I want to know what's going to happen to the building in the next 10 years, right? I have to plan something out. I have to have like some kind of management plan. I have to have some kind of holding plan, some kind of exit plan. Like, what am I going to do with this freaking building in the next 10 years? What's going to happen with it? So I might myself prepare a pro forma, or I might hire an expert like you to prepare the pro forma. Now, I've been hired to do pro formas for people before. And what you do is you look at what trends are likely to happen in the industry and in that market. Like what's going to happen to interest rates? Well, you know, the smart money is thinking that interest rates are going up. What is going to happen to vacancies? Well, office vacancies appear to be going up, don't they? What's going to be happening to competition? Are any competing buildings being constructed or converted in the neighborhood? So you look at all these variables that could strongly affect the future income and expenses of the building and make educated guesses about what's likely to happen to the building in the next 10 years. Now, I want to tell you something funny that happened to me once. When I first started in commercial real estate, somebody gave me a pro forma for a building, and the pro forma was written by the seller. And I was reading this pro forma statement, and I'm reading it, right? And I go, wow, like this is amazing. Like, look how much money this building is going to make in the next 10 years. And my broker comes over and he goes, give me that. And he goes like this. He goes, here's what I think of the seller's pro forma. I go, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, nobody can predict the future. And the seller is trying to sell the building. So he wants everybody to think that the building is going to be a tremendous success and it's going to make huge amounts of money in the future. What you have to do, Kristen, is you are representing your buyer in this case, you have to be critical of the seller's pro forma. And you have to be able to say to your buyer, well, I think that the seller has some awfully bold assumptions about what vacancy rates are going to be. Or I think he has awfully bold assumptions about sales cycles or about how fast properties can be absorbed or rented up. You know, he said, you have to be critical of this because that's what your client is depending on you to do. They're depending on you to analyze it. So a pro forma is usually written by representatives for seller, buyer, and mortgage bank. Mortgage bank wants to know what's going to happen to the building in the next 10 years too. So do we feel clear about the pro forma and operating statement now? Okay, because I don't want to move on until people feel that I've explained it well enough. All right, now discounted cash flow. Discounted cash flow, like a lot of people were confused by it in the course. And the reason why is because if you wanted to do a discounted cash flow analysis today, you would go and get a calculator and binkety bink do it, right? They have special calculators that will do it. You could get a Texas Instruments real estate calculator. You could get a Hewlett Packard real estate calculator, and you could binkety bink, you know, do a discounted cash flow analysis in just a few seconds. But the reason that I went through the math of it is that I wanted people to understand, like, I don't want you to think, wow, it's so mysterious. Like I put some numbers in the calculator. I don't know what they mean. I don't know why I did it, but they came out. Like I didn't want you to feel that way. So I went through the manual mathematics behind it in case you wanted to really understand what discounted cash flow analysis is. Now, discounted cash flow analysis, discounted cash flow analysis is a mathematical way of predicting the future value of money or the future value of an investment property. So let me give you like a dopey example, okay? Let's say that I lend somebody $100, okay? My friend Sam, all right, I'm gonna lend Sam $100. And Sam says, Kristen, I'm not gonna pay you any interest, but I'll pay you back in a year. I go, okay, Sam, that's fine. Pay me back on August 16th of 2024, okay? Now, Sam comes back in 2024 and he hands me $100. You know what? I just lost money. The reason I lost money is because we have inflation in our economy and $100 next year is not going to be worth as much as $100 today. And the other thing is that I could have taken that $100 and invested it and maybe gotten like at least 3% interest. So let's say that I took that $100 and invested it for a year and got 3% interest. Now I'd have $103. But I didn't invest the money. I gave it to Sam and I didn't charge him any interest. So I've lost $3 that I could have had. So when Sam comes next year and hands me $100, he's really given me 97 because I lost $3 I could have had. So money has a different value in future than it has now because of the opportunity to earn interest off of it and because of inflation, because the value of money goes down with inflation. So discounted cash flow lets us predict the future value of something by taking into account interest rates, inflation, and other factors. Okay, so first of all, did I explain that so that it makes sense? And then I'm going to give you the question on the test, but I first want to make sure that I explained it so it made sense. Okay, so here's the question that's on the test. And when you see how easy this question is, you're going to like it, okay? Which type of analysis lets us determine the value of real estate in past, present, or future? And your choices are going to be which type of analysis lets us determine the value of real estate in past, present, or future? And your choices are hypothecation, comparative market analysis, CMA, appraisal, or discounted cash flow analysis. So what's the answer? Beautiful. Beautiful. Everybody got it. All right. Now, what I am, thank you. What I am attempting to do is to give you as many freaking questions as I can in the time that we have. But if anybody has any questions for me, those always take precedence, okay? So if anybody has anything they are unclear about, oh, here's a good one. There's a fair housing question. By the way, just to let you know, I got this one wrong. Okay, which was the first fair housing law to give everybody equal rights in mortgage borrowing? 1866 Civil Rights Act, Article 2, Fair Housing Act of 1968, Government Procedures Act, and that's in 1975. Anybody know? Whoa, everybody's got it right. I'm so impressed. I told you I got this one wrong. All right, the answer is indeed C. Oh, did I? Maybe I take it personally because I got it wrong. But at least people remember. At least people remember, because that's another one you got right on. You will get right when you take your test. What is the main purpose of New York City Building Department? And I'm going to give you choices, okay? what's the main purpose of New York City Building Department? To enforce building code, review construction materials, assess real property, or allow variances. Thank you. Everybody got it right. Beautiful. Yes. A is correct. Enforce code. Now, the buildings department does review materials. But that is part of code compliance. So buildings department does a lot of things for code compliance. And one of the little things they do is they review materials, but they do lots and lots and lots of other stuff. So the overarching thing that Department of Buildings does is enforce building code. All right. Oh, I've got one for you. Residents of a town want to preserve a lovely old theater in its present condition. What agency should they go to? And here are your choices, okay? Okay, residents of a town want to preserve a lovely old theater in its present condition. What agency should they go to? Zoning Board of Appeals, Architectural Review Board, City Planning Commission, or Landmarks Preservation Commission? This is a trick question, by the way. Everybody hates this question between you and me. Okay, I'm going to tell you the answer, okay? Everybody hates this question, okay? Including me, by the way. I don't like it either. And the answer is B, Architectural Review Board. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why B is the right answer. Now, first and foremost, it's a tricky question because they didn't tell you that the building was historic or that it was landmarked or anything like that. They said it was lovely and old. So, I mean, it might be from the 1980s or something, you know, that's pretty old to me. So it might not qualify to be a landmark. It might not be designated a landmark, and Landmarks Preservation Commission only has authority over buildings or neighborhoods that are designated landmarks. Now, the other thing about it is I checked, okay, believe me, I checked. The only city in our state that has a Landmarks Preservation Commission is New York City. And the test is for the whole state. Now, it's not like the other cities don't care, like Rochester and Buffalo and, you know, those places, they care about historic preservation. They just don't call it Landmarks Preservation Commission. Like they might call it the Historic Value Agency, or they might call it the Heritage Foundation of the city. You know, they have all different kinds of names for it, but they just don't happen to use the same name that New York City does. So this is, the question says that these people live in a town, they don't live in New York City. So they don't even have a Landmarks Preservation Commission. The thing that bothers me about this question is that Architectural Review Board is usually part of the Planning Commission. So if you chose C for the Planning Commission, you're not like totally wrong. But the answer that the test writers want is Architectural Review Board, because just about every municipality in the whole freaking state has it. So as long as you can remember Architectural Review Board, you're going to get this right on the test. Okay, did somebody say that they had a question? Did somebody say they had a question about something? All right, if nobody had a question, I'm just going to keep on going. Oh, okay, good question. I'll tell you in a second. Which does IRS legally require independent contractors in real estate to have? At least 2 years experience, a signed contract with a broker, a real estate license, or they got to work full time. Nobody knows the answer? Okay, if you don't know it, if you don't know the answer, that's a good sign to me. You know why? Because it shows that what we're doing is useful. Okay, because we want to be doing stuff that we don't already know, you know, in like a nanosecond. Okay, so the answer is B. Now, the IRS doesn't care how many years experience you have. You can have 1 day experience and still be an independent contractor. So A is wrong. B, signed contract with the broker, that is true. When you join a brokerage, IRS, oh, hi, Jennifer. Yes, I definitely will. Okay, sorry to lose you. Jennifer's right, though. This class is supposed to end at 7, but I don't know. I can't help it. I stopped looking at the time and I just keep going. So if people have to leave, I do understand, but we'll go until we clear up any pending questions. Okay. Now, in the meantime, so yes, when you go and you join a brokerage, the IRS requires you to sign an independent contractor contract. And what the independent contractor contract says is it basically repeats all the IRS tax rules about independent contractors. Now, what's interesting about that contract is that usually when you get a job or something, like you sign all your contracts on your first day, but independent contractor contract, you have to sign it every year that you work for the brokerage. You have to keep signing it over and over and over again every single tax year. All right. And then C, real estate license. No, you can be an independent contractor without a real estate license. And D, work full time. No, there's no rule that says you have to work full time. All right. So the answer is definitely B, like boy. Okay, now the question is, what's the difference between block busting and steering? The way that I remember it is, I remember it visually, because steering actually comes from steering a car. So it's like if you jump into a cab and you say, like, take this Chinese person to Chinatown, or steer this Italian guy to Little Italy or something like that. You're taking people to a certain place based on discrimination. Because how do you know that the Chinese person wants to live in Chinatown? Or how do you know that the Italian guy wants to live in Little Italy? You know, that's kind of a silly assumption. So you're telling the cab driver to steer the car. So steering, let me type it for you. Steering comes from the idea of steering a car, like jumping in a cab and telling driver to steer somebody to a neighborhood. You are showing them based on, I don't know, profiling or discrimination. Like saying, steer this Chinese guy to Chinatown, or steer this Italian guy to Little Italy. Like, I mean, those examples, they just sound so silly. You know, they don't make any sense. They're silly, but those are examples of what would be steering, and steering is a sort of ignorant thing to do. Now, block busting is busting up the block. It's destroying the neighborhood. So block busting comes from the idea of destroying a neighborhood, busting up the block. Now, you're destroying the neighborhood. A person committing block busting is destroying an established neighborhood. An established neighborhood by trying to scare owners to sell based on discrimination. Now, that actually happened to me when I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, there was this dishonest broker, and what he did is he sold a house to an African-American family in a neighborhood that was primarily European American. And then he went and knocked on everybody's door and said, oh, look, the minorities are moving in. And like, you better sell now, you know, before all the minorities move in. Now, interestingly, the families in the neighborhood were offended by this, and they got together, and my parents got together with some of the other parents in the neighborhood, and they actually reported this agent to Department of State, because what he was doing was clearly blockbusting. And I believe Department of State disciplined him because that activity stopped right away. And interestingly, just as an aside, like, all of us grew up, and the children from the minority family that moved in, the boy who's the same age as me, he became the school principal in that town. So anyway.
Kristen, I have a quick question. I have a quick question on that. Is it also, I think I remember reading or seeing a question that made me think or understand that it's even illegal for someone to ask you to bring them to a neighborhood that resembles Little Italy, or bring me to a neighborhood. Is it also illegal for someone to ask you to lead them? You know what I mean? Like, if someone specifically asks to see neighborhoods where, you know, there's a huge demographic of other
Indian people or, you know, Black people, white people, is that illegal for you to say, okay, you know, this is where the population that you're asking me about is living? Is that okay? Or is that not okay? Are we supposed to say, tell me a little bit more about the property you're looking for at that point? Or what do we do? Is that, I thought I remember seeing something that read that that is also illegal, like to follow your client's wishes on, um, I don't know, bias request.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it in a million years. I'll tell you why. I can't break the law even if somebody tells me to.
Right. But if someone, so what do you do in that instance? If someone says something
To be fair
or,
with you, it's never happened to me. And I'll tell
okay,
you why. Most people who are that dead set that they've got to be in a neighborhood with others who are of the same ethnic group they are. Like, I'll give you an
Mhm.
example. I used to, for many years, I dated this guy who was Chinese and his parents didn't speak any English at all. So they felt
Mhm.
very strongly that they had to live in a Chinese neighborhood because that was where they could, you know, communicate and get along in Chinese all day long without ever learning English. Fair enough.
Right, right.
But
Mm-hmm.
I have never met people who feel that strongly who don't know where the Chinese neighborhood is. If they feel
I
that
don't know.
strongly that they
Okay.
have to be
Okay.
certain near a certain religious shrine, you know, or
Mm-hmm.
religious
Mm-hmm.
temple, or something, they know where it is. If they feel
Okay.
strongly that they have to be near a certain type of cuisine, they know where it is. So I have
Okay.
never had anybody ask me to do it. But if they did ask me to do it, it would tell me two things. It would tell me, first of all, they're asking me to break the law and I'm not doing it. Okay. Because I
Okay.
can't break the law even to obey my client. Okay, you can never
Okay.
obey somebody else to break the law. But the second thing it tells me is that they don't have any freaking idea where they want to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Like,
Have
you
they
know,
ever, huh?
like a relocator, you know, if
Yeah,
you're locating someone from another state, like someone who has no idea where they want to live. Right.
I was
Right.
just gonna say that. It would have to be somebody who's like
Mhm.
never even been to New York City. Okay, the answer to that
Exactly.
is my answer. I'm going to give you the answer that is the conventional wisdom in the industry. And the conventional wisdom is that we are not tour guides. That's kind of like a saying in
Mhm.
the industry. They
Mhm.
go, we are not tour
Maybe
guides.
they should get some more details on where they want to live before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So what you
Mhm.
do in a case like that, like suppose you're locating somebody from Denver and they go,
Mhm.
"I have
Mhm.
absolutely no idea. You know, then you say to them, well, look, where do you work? You know, because
Okay.
want to
Okay.
be on the same train line or you want to be in some kind of proximity to where you want to work. But
Mhm.
I know brokers who have said to somebody, look, tell you what, if you promise that, you know, you're going to work with me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you a ticket on one of those double-decker buses that gives people tours of the city. And
Mhm.
like they go around and or you say to them, like if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to buy them a ticket on the double-decker bus, you say to them, look, why don't you go and visit where your job is going to be? Go and visit where you would like to have your children in school. Go, you know, go visit that district. Go and visit where, like if you're religious, where your place of worship might be. And walk around and get the feeling, and then come back to me in 2 days, and then we'll pinpoint some places based on what you think is going to work for you.
Thank you so much. That is, yeah, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. There's another
Otherwise,
starting point.
otherwise, you'll just end up like, even if you make the sale, you'll be making like $2 an hour, like running around the city showing them everything.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you.
Let's see, I may be thinking too deep into this, but what if someone asks me, where's the Italian food mostly sold? I like Italian food. Well, I don't know. Don't they sell Italian food like freaking everywhere in New York City? Um, I see, my experience is that honestly, like in all my years of real estate, nobody has ever asked me that question. Because like if they are so dead set to know, like where can I get Italian food? All they do is Google best Italian food in New York City and they're going to find out about Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. You know, like asking me is probably the last thing on their mind because they figure a real estate broker doesn't know anything about cuisine anyway. And I in particular don't know anything about cuisine. So I've just never had anybody ask me that before, but I have. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story that is going to scare you. All right. I once made a clerical error. I showed some people an apartment and I made a clerical error. I showed them 26C, but I accidentally wrote 27C. All right. So they thought they were renting 27C. And I said, I'm so sorry. I really meant 26C. I had a typo. Okay. And I thought they'd go, oh, okay, you had a typo. That's too bad. Nah, these people screamed, they hollered, they cried about how horrible it was that I was giving them 26C instead of 27C. And they were calling it bait and switch. And I was dishonest and all this kind of stuff. So I said, what is it that concerns you? Why do you think 27C is so much better than 26C? And they said, the views are better. So I demonstrated to them mathematically. I calculated the sine and cosine. I proved to them that the views of the Statue of Liberty were identical. So then they said, no, that's not our problem. It's not the views. The problem is that you're a racist and you hate Asian people. Now, did I say one word about them being Asian? Did it ever come up anywhere in any kind of conversation or discussion? Of course not. But they were looking for a hook. And they said that they would be willing to overlook my overt, irreconcilable racism if the landlord gave them a free health club membership. Now, imagine if they had said to me, where do we find good Asian food? Or where can we find a place of Asian worship? And I had answered them. I mean, they were going through all of that exercise when the concept of nationality or race or ethnicity never even came up once. You see what I'm saying? People are very eager to play the race card. And if you do anything to open yourself up to allow that, they will do it. So I hope that story scared you.
No, it's prepared us for the future.
Yeah. Well, so I told you before I had a Chinese boyfriend, so I wanted to bring him out. Except the trouble is I had just broken up with him and he was mad at me. So I couldn't bring him out. Yes. Why are child-friendly property not allowed? Is that considered steering? Yeah. Yeah, it's considered discriminatory about people with families who have children or people who don't have children. So what you can do is, like, let's say that you are advertising a building that you think would be really good for families. Like, you're never going to say in an ad family friendly. All right. But you could say building has a beautiful children's playroom. I've done that before. But once again, people are astute. I mean, they check out the school districts. They oftentimes know what school district they want to live in before they even start going house hunting. But yeah, you can't say things in an ad. And if you do, you'll get, your ad will get rejected. You can't say things in an ad like, you know, great for young people or great for young couples or for empty nesters or like you just can't say it because it's discriminatory. All right, anybody got anything else for me? All right. Well, thank you for sticking with me because we did go way over time. Now, there's a couple of things I want to ask you. The one thing I want to ask you is that the school, earlier they said that if you like our school, if you like RELNY, if you would be willing to go to Facebook and say that you like us. And I got to tell you, I have taught and do teach for a lot of schools, and this is the best school that I've ever taught for. I think this is the best school. I think it's the most well-run school. And I think that like they have always encouraged me to go into a lot of detail. But what I like the best about this school is that they're very student oriented. Like they have great customer service, and they always encourage the students to come to them with any questions. Like there are some schools where like you can write them and they won't return your emails, or you can call them and they don't answer their messages. You know, there are a lot of schools like that. And this school is very student oriented. And that's one of the things I like about it. But anyway, so I just put here in the chat, I guess that's the link to Facebook. So if you would be kind enough to say something nice on Facebook, and besides, then I'll still have a job. So that would be good. All right, now the next thing I want to ask is, does everybody want a transcript of this chat? Now, what you can do with this chat right now is you don't even have to get somebody to email it to you. Oh, thank you, Sherry. You can just save it. Okay, you can save it by hitting the 3 little red dots at the bottom of the chat. They're not red, but the 3 little dots at the bottom of the chat. And when you click the 3 dots, it gives you the option to save. So you can save the chat right now. What I usually do is I copy and paste it into a document. But if you can't do any of those things or don't know how to do any of those things, perfectly cool, because I will email to you the transcript of this chat. So if you want me to email it to you, could you please type your email into the chat now, and I will do it. Okay, don't worry, Jessica, the notes will have everything in it. Because if I was saying anything important or asking a question, I always wrote it down. All right, looks like everybody's happening here. Okay. Don't worry, you have time. So you can type your email address. Here, let me write it for you. Please type your email address if you would. Yeah, Eric, I understand. I do that too. If you would like me to email you a copy of the transcript for this class. All right, I think everybody's good. Now, I had another person who wanted to speak to me at the end of class. Do you prefer to speak now in the Zoom, or would you prefer to give me a call?
Whatever works best for you. I'm okay either way.
Okay, well, we're both here.
Okay, okay.
And there are other people here who might benefit from it, you know, from whatever your question might be.
Sounds good. So I signed up with the Blauveld Public Library for the final exam, but they told me I needed some information from the school. So I think I'm missing some information.
Okay, very good. I don't know what information they need, but the school will give you anything you want. Do you know Deb?
So I did reach out to support, and they said to email her. So I just wanted to make sure that that was the right direction to
Here,
go.
let me write. Yeah, it is. Deb is delightful. And she really goes to the ends of the earth to help the students. And Deb's email is info@relny.com. And you can copy me on it if you want to. Okay, my email is chrisbacorn@gmail.com.
Okay. Okay, so I'll do that. I just was hoping, because I'm scheduled at 9 in the morning, so
You know
I hope
what? I just wanted to say I had the same issue, and I'm actually reading Deb's email right now. She
Okay.
says you need to go onto your dashboard and put this same information in our proctor appointment form. I'll
form.
chat for you.
Okay, because I read, there's some instructions that said point 1, point 2, but I don't see where to do that. Because I only had the option of click on proctor, or if I wanted to go into one of the facilities. So there were only 2 options. I don't know if you see the same thing.
Katrina, could you please repeat what that email from Deb said? It said, go to your RELNY dashboard and print what?
And put the same information in our proctor appointment form.
Oh,
The proctor appointment form, it says.
okay, that we had some really bad background noise. So go to your
Yeah.
RELNY dashboard and print what?
I'm trying to put it in the chat right now. It says
No,
go
I'm
to
putting it in the chat. I'm putting it in the chat for you.
Okay. It says you need to go onto your dashboard and put
Okay.
the same information in our proctor appointment
But
form.
what same information?
I guess the time and all the details of your appointment.
Okay.
But where do you see that form?
You need to complete the form. Where is it, you said? Let's see.
So-
You need to go onto your dashboard and proctor.
So I
Let's
clicked
see.
on dashboard, and then I have either schedule/start final exam.
Maybe schedule. Schedule sounds right.
Okay, and then I have select one of the options below, online proctoring or test center.
It sounds like you're at a test center, right?
Yes, so click
Okay.
test center. And then it says take your final exam right away with online. No, take your final exam in one of our test locations.
Yeah, test location. It sounds like what you want.
Okay, and then it says step 1, choose a test center, which I did. Step 2, once you've confirmed your appointment with the test center, click on confirm appointment button on the right side. Maybe because I'm on an iPad, I don't have it. I don't see the confirm button on the right side. And then step 3, show up at obviously show up at the test center, but I'm just looking for that confirm appointment button. I don't see it on my iPad.
So you completed the information already?
I don't even see a form.
Proctor appointment. You don't see the proctor appointment form? Maybe you
No.
gotta enlarge or make your screen smaller, maybe. I don't know.
But so would it be better for me to open it on a computer? Because maybe I'm missing some of the page. I don't.
Oh, I have no idea.
Sometimes when you're on your phone, stuff doesn't show up, right?
Yeah.
No, this is on
Do
my
iPads
iPad.
allow you to flip your screen vertical to horizontal? I know that works sometimes on the iPhone. I don't know if it works on the iPad. Because if you're just looking for a button and the button's not there, that could be it. Otherwise, I'll just go on a computer, try it there.
Okay. Okay, so that's the only step that I have to complete. I just wanted to have everything finalized before tomorrow. That would make me nervous, but thank you guys.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, let us know how you do.
Okay, I will do. And
Yeah.
I'll CC you on the email.
Yeah, because when you take a test, like you have feelings afterwards about how it was and everything. So like you can write me after the test. I just gave you my email address. You can write me after the test and tell me how you think it went.
Okay, I will do that, definitely. Thank you so much.
And Kristen, you know, can everybody hear me? Is my mic on?
Yes.
Yes.
your-
Oh,
Yes.
so I just want to say that I feel so freaking prepared for this test. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
I feel so prepared. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I want everybody to feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. I'm glad to hear it. And once again, Katrina, you let me know how it goes, okay?
I will. I will. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to turn off my camera and my microphone, and I'm going to get down and start emailing transcripts to everybody, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night,
All right.
everyone.
Hope to see people
Good
next
night.
week.
Yep.
Bye.